Have you ever wondered if there's more to prayer than just words? What if you've been missing the key to a life-changing connection with God all along? This isn't just another message about prayer, it's a revelation. In this video, you'll uncover the exact blueprint Jesus gave for powerful, transformative prayer. What if one simple shift in how you pray could unlock peace, healing, and a deeper relationship with God? Most people have no idea what they're getting wrong. Until now. Prayer has been practiced for thousands of years, but let's be honest, many of us feel like our prayers aren't making a difference. The stresses of life, the pain of broken relationships, or the weight of anxiety can make us wonder, is God even listening? The truth is, He's always listening. But there's a way to pray that opens the door for Him to move powerfully in your life. And Jesus Himself showed us how. Imagine what could happen if your prayers shifted from routine to revelation, from frustration to breakthrough. What if every word you spoke to God brought clarity, peace, and strength? This isn't just about prayer. It's about transforming the way you live, think, and connect with the Creator of the universe. And the best part? It's simpler than you think. So, where do we start? Let's dive into what Jesus says about the foundation of prayer and how it can change everything. Have you ever rushed into prayer, desperate for answers, only to feel unheard? What if the secret isn't about what you ask, but how you begin? Jesus revealed a truth that changes everything. Prayer starts with worship, not requests. Picture this. Moses stands before a bush ablaze with fire, yet it isn't consumed. He steps closer, and a voice calls out, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Exodus 3:5. In that moment, Moses isn't just meeting a burning bush, he's encountering the presence of God. Before he speaks, he is reminded of God's holiness, His unmatched power, and His authority over all creation. What does this mean for us? Like Moses, when we approach God, our first step isn't to speak, it's to recognize who He is. Jesus emphasized this in the Lord's Prayer, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name," Matthew 6:9. These words aren't just a preamble, they're a declaration that shifts our hearts and minds. When you start with worship, something extraordinary happens. You stop focusing on your problems, and instead, you focus on the greatness of God. You acknowledge Him as the Creator of the universe, the provider of all you need, and the protector who watches over you. How can you do this? The next time you pray, pause before making any requests. Instead, say, "Lord, you are holy. You are my Creator, my provider, and my protector. I worship you for who you are." Let this be the foundation of your prayer. It sets the tone for everything else. But worship is just the beginning. What comes next could completely transform how you approach God. Jesus teaches us another step that unlocks the true power of prayer. Ready to discover it? Let's move from worship to surrender, aligning our will with God's perfect plan. Have you ever felt like your prayers are just a wish list, sent out into the universe with little hope of them being answered? What if the secret isn't in asking for what you want, but in surrendering to something far greater than yourself? Picture this. It's a quiet, starlit night in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus kneels alone, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what's to come. He knows the cross is near. He knows the pain and suffering awaiting him. In that moment, he does something astonishing. Instead of pleading for an escape, he whispers these words, "Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done." Matthew chapter 26:39. Can you imagine the courage it took to say that? To trust completely in God's plan, even when it led straight into unimaginable pain? This wasn't resignation. It was surrender. And in that surrender, Jesus showed us the power of aligning our hearts with God's will. What happens when you align with God's will? When we surrender our will to God, we step into His perfect plan. And here's the beautiful thing. His plan is always greater than ours. It may not look the way we imagined, but it's filled with peace, purpose, and freedom. It allows us to release the heavy burden of trying to control everything ourselves. Have you ever considered that the no you received in prayer might actually be God's yes to something better? Aligning with His will means trusting that He sees the entire picture, even when we can only see a tiny fraction. So how do you align with God's will in your prayers? Start by saying, "Lord, I trust your plans are better than mine. Help me surrender my desires and align with your perfect will." These words are powerful because they open your heart to God's guidance and let His peace take over your fears. Think of Abraham in Genesis 22, walking up the mountain with Isaac, fully trusting God even as he carried the wood for a sacrifice. Abraham didn't know how God would provide, but he believed that God's will was perfect. And in the end, God provided the ram, sparing Isaac and fulfilling His promises to Abraham. Right now, think about something in your life you've been holding on to tightly. A dream, a relationship, a plan. Are you willing to let it go and trust God's will, even if it looks different from what you expect? Share in the comments, what's one area where you're learning to surrender? Now that we've explored the power of aligning with God's will, let's take it a step further. How do we trust Him to meet our needs, one day at a time? What if the secret to peace wasn't in knowing what tomorrow holds, but in trusting the one who holds it? What if your prayers could free you from the heavy burden of worry and unlock a calm, steady faith one day at a time? Picture this: the Israelites, lost in the wilderness, with no food, no certainty, and no plan for the future. Each morning they woke up hungry, unsure how they would survive another day. But then, like clockwork, manna appeared, bread from heaven, just enough for that day. Not a feast, not a month's supply, just what they needed for the next 24 hours. And here's the catch: if they tried to store extra, it spoiled. God was teaching them something far more profound than just gathering food. He was teaching them to trust Him daily. This is the same principle Jesus pointed to in Matthew 6:11 when He taught us to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." Jesus wasn't just talking about physical provision. He was inviting us to live with a radical trust in God's faithfulness. Each day has its challenges, but God promises to meet us in the moment, providing exactly what we need when we need it. But let's be honest, how often do we focus on the what-ifs of tomorrow instead of the thank you for today? We worry about next week's bills, the long-term outcomes of our choices, or the endless "what happens if I fail?" But Jesus calls us to a different way of living, one rooted in faith, not fear. When you trust God for today, something incredible happens. The weight of tomorrow's worries starts to lift. You begin to see His hand in the little things, the unexpected kindness of a stranger, the strength to face a difficult conversation, or the peace that comes from knowing you're not in this alone. Imagine starting your day with a simple, heartfelt prayer. "Lord, I trust you to provide for my needs today. Help me let go of my fears about tomorrow." Like manna in the wilderness, God's provision meets you in the moment. You'll find His strength, His guidance, and His peace right when you need it. What if trusting God for today is the first step to breaking free from the cycle of anxiety? Could the peace you've been searching for be waiting in the simplicity of this daily trust? As we learn to rely on God for today's needs, there's another part of prayer that unlocks healing and peace, one that's often misunderstood. Let's explore the power of forgiveness in your connection with God. Have you ever felt the weight of a grudge, like a chain you just can't break free from? What if that weight is holding you back, not just from peace, but from truly connecting with God? Forgiveness isn't just a nice idea, it's the key to unlocking freedom in your prayer life. And Jesus made it clear, it's non-negotiable. Imagine this. A servant owes his master a debt so enormous it would take lifetimes to repay. Yet, in a moment of mercy, the master forgives him completely, wiping the slate clean. But then that same servant turns around and refuses to forgive someone who owes him just a small amount. Furious, the master confronts him. "Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had on you?" Matthew 18:23. 35. The story doesn't end well for the unforgiving servant, and Jesus used it to drive home a powerful truth. Forgiveness isn't just something we ask for, it's something we give. When we hold on to anger and bitterness, we're the ones chained, not the person who hurt us. Mini hook. But here's the twist. What if the very prayers you're waiting for God to answer are being blocked because you're holding on to unforgiveness? Jesus teaches us to pray, "Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors." Matthew 6:12. This isn't just a suggestion, it's a spiritual principle. If we want to receive God's forgiveness, we must extend it to others. Think about it. Can you truly ask God to heal your heart while clinging to the very pain He's asking you to release? Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing what someone did. It means surrendering the burden of bitterness to God. It's not about letting them off the hook. It's about letting yourself off the hook. Example from the Israelites. Holding grudges in the wilderness left their hearts hardened, and they missed God's blessings. Don't let the same happen to you. What to pray? Lord, help me forgive those who've hurt me. Heal my heart and make room for your grace. What if today was the day you chose freedom over resentment? What would your life look like if you let God take that pain and replace it with peace? Forgiveness doesn't just transform your heart, it strengthens your connection with God. But life's challenges don't stop there. Let's look at how prayer becomes your shield in the battles you can't face alone. Have you ever felt like life's battles are too big to face alone? What if I told you that you were never meant to fight them on your own? Imagine having a shield, God's shield, guarding you through every trial, every temptation, every storm. This is the promise of prayer. But picture this. A young man named Joseph, far from home, betrayed by his own brothers, now serving in a foreign land. In Genesis 39, Joseph faces one of the greatest tests of his faith, a temptation that could destroy him. Potiphar's wife persistently tries to seduce him, but Joseph doesn't stay to argue or reason. He runs. Why? Because he knew that his strength wasn't enough on its own. He trusted God to guide and protect him, and because of that trust, he stayed true to his faith and purpose. His story is a powerful reminder. When we call on God, He provides a way out, even in our weakest moments. What temptations are you facing today? Is it the pull of anger, the lure of doubt, or the pressure to compromise your values? You don't have to face them alone. God is ready to fight for you, but you need to invite Him in. The power of Matthew 6:13. Jesus taught us this prayer for a reason. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. This isn't just a phrase, it's a lifeline. It's an acknowledgement that we can't navigate life's challenges by ourselves. Temptation isn't just about morality, it's about anything that draws us away from God's purpose for our lives. And here's the good news. When we ask for God's protection, He doesn't just guide us, He shields us. Practical application. A prayer for strength. When you feel weak, when you're on the verge of giving in, pray this. Lord, I'm not strong enough to face this on my own. Protect me from the things that threaten to pull me away from you. Guide me to walk in your ways and keep my heart aligned with yours. Think about this. What would happen if you started every day by asking God to protect you and lead you? How might your choices, your struggles, even your peace of mind change? I challenge you to try it for just 1 week and see what happens. As powerful as protection is, prayer doesn't stop there. It's about more than asking prayer. It's about opening your heart with complete honesty. Let's explore the heart of prayer. Authenticity. Have you ever felt like your prayers were just words, like you're speaking into the void, hoping someone, anyone, is listening? What if I told you the power of prayer isn't in the words themselves, but in the heart behind them? This truth could change everything. Let me tell you about Hannah, a woman whose story is quietly tucked into the pages of the Bible, 1 Samuel 1:10-13. Hannah was desperate. She longed for a child, but faced heartbreak year after year. One day she went to the temple, completely overwhelmed. She didn't have the perfect words or a polished prayer. Instead, she wept. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She poured out her heart so deeply that Eli the priest thought she was drunk. But God didn't see her tears as weakness. He saw them as faith. Her silent, broken prayer touched heaven, and in time, He answered her cry, blessing her with a son. What does this tell us? That God isn't moved by how eloquent we sound. He's moved by how honest we are. Jesus reminds us of this in Matthew 6:7 when He says, "Do not use vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think they will be heard for their many words." This is a direct challenge to the idea that we need to impress God with perfect phrases or long-winded prayers. God values authenticity over performance. He's not looking for a script. He's looking for sincerity. Think about it. How would you feel if a close friend only read from a pre-written script when they spoke to you? It wouldn't feel genuine, right? The same applies to prayer. God wants a real, raw connection. He wants your heart, not a performance. If you're struggling to find the words, don't worry. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is the simplest. Try saying, "Lord, I'm hurting and I don't even know what to ask for. Please help me." That's it. No fancy words. Just your heart reaching out to His. Here's the truth. God already knows what you need before you even ask. Matthew 6:8. So why pretend? Why not approach Him with the honesty you'd give to a trusted friend? When we pray authentically, trusting that God hears us, something incredible happens. We unlock the true power of prayer, not because of our words, but because of our faith in the one who listens. Prayer isn't just a ritual, it's a lifeline. It's not about perfect words or following a formula. It's about connecting with the Creator of the universe in the most authentic way possible. When you approach prayer with sincerity, trust, and faith, you invite God to work in ways you can't even imagine. The power of prayer isn't in the words you speak, it's in the God who hears them. Now, here's my challenge to you. Take what you've learned today and put it into practice. Start small. Speak to God as if He's sitting right beside you, because He is. Be honest, be real, and watch how your relationship with Him transforms. And here's the question I want you to reflect on. What's one thing in your life that you're ready to surrender to God in prayer today? Let us know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. If this video spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend who needs encouragement or a fresh perspective on prayer, and I'd love to hear from you. What resonated with you the most? Was there a moment or idea that stood out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Your presence here means more than you know, and I hope this message has blessed you. If you found value in today's video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps us reach more people with this message of hope. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future content. Remember, prayer isn't just a moment in your day. It's the beginning of a transformation in your life. Until next time, keep seeking, keep trusting, and keep praying with purpose. God is listening.